Next card we've got is another card for Hunters, 1 mana 1/1. Alley Cat, so it's just a kind of a meme card. Battle Cry, you summon a 1/1 cat. Now, this is interesting to me because it's a 1 mana 1/1 that summons a 1/1. And I think Blizzard has been notoriously stingy on giving people the ability to have free death rattle stuff or battlecry stuff that spawns more units every single time, right? Like, we haven't really had cards like Haunted Creeper in the past, but if you look at the way that Hunter is kind of developing, we've got Rat Pack coming in, which gives them a bunch of rats. You've already got Infested Wolf, which gives them a bunch of little spiders when it dies, and we kind of lost Haunted Creeper, that is a neutral card, but Hunter is getting the flavor of play a bunch of beasts and they all flood the board repeatedly, which is really useful when it comes to playing a deck that doesn't have much card draw, because one of the biggest problems of the Hunter class is their lack of card draw, and if I can just get minions that create a lot of value on the board once they're there and even after they're gone, then I think there's like an archetype that develops there where Hunter doesn't need to draw cards because it's always on the board and it just keeps pressuring you with their minion base. I think there's something there to be explored. I don't know if you play Alley Cat and Hunter. I mean, the current one-drops that Hunters play are typically Fiery Bat in a mid-range deck, and I'd say Secret Keeper in just a secret list. So if you don't play Fiery Bat, then you're maybe playing Argent Squires you used to with Abusive Sergeant, but after the Abusive Nerve that kind of phased out, typical mid-range Hunter is mostly gone. You don't see much of it. Will a card like Alley Cat bring it back to the forefront? Again, it depends on how good AoE is. You know, Volcanic Potion and Mage just shuts down a lot of your 3/2s, and if you're not able to keep your stuff alive early game, then no card draw is going to mean you just get blown out. And this is a really easy minion to answer, right? Tunnel Trog kills it, straight up. Think of it as Living Roots. Like, it's just a Living Roots for Hunter that doesn't have versatility with it, right? It enables Kill Command, it enables Houndmaster, it can be buffed by effects that buff Beasts in your hand, for instance, but it's not really better than Living Roots. You can't Arcane Shot if you don't get the 1/1s. So you really need to value your early game push to make this good. Now, on the flip side of that, you could look at Fiery Bat and this card in conjunction with one another in the same deck to create a roster of cards where you have 4 1-drops in your deck, so that's a much more consistent opener. If you play double Argent Squire, double Fiery Bat, double Alley Cat, then you've got 6 1-drops, you're starting to look a little bit like an aggro deck, a little bit like a Zoo Hunter, and suddenly the consistency of your openers is increased. So I think maybe in a deck that tries to be a lot more about 1-drops, this is going to see play. Otherwise, I don't think it's a staple necessarily in every Hunter deck. It's just for very specific types of decks that you build for Hunter. Next card we've got is Smuggler's Crate. So Smuggler's Crate is a 1-mana spell that gives a random beast in your hand +2/+2. Going back to what I was saying about Alley Cat, for instance, right? It's beneficial to have cards like Smuggler's Crate in any beast deck, but if you play Smuggler's Crate, then I don't think you necessarily want to cram your deck full of 1-drops. So this is going to be an interesting twist on the way Hunter is played, because this is definitely worth using. When it comes to buffing minions, a +2/+2 for 1 mana is worth quite a bit. Any 2-drop that you have, Huge Toad, that you might play, Kindly Grandmother. Huge Toad becomes a 5/4, King Zellic becomes a 5/4, Kindly Grandmother becomes a 3/3, that spawns at 3/2. Suddenly, you can start your curve on turn 2. You don't have to play Fiery Bat, you don't have to play Alley Cat, you can just start on turn 2 with Kindly Grandmother. You can start even a little bit later to start dropping really big dudes like Infested Wolf as a 5/5. There's also the new Beast Rager that buffs beasts in your hand. You also have the 3-mana 3/3 that when it dies buffs something in your hand. So suddenly, Hunters can play a different approach to mid-range where instead of relying on just curving out with beasts, they can play a little bit slower. They start curving not with the Eaglehorn Bow and ever go face with it, but just with minions that they've buffed preemptively. Beast Rager is not a beast, so it doesn't eat up a Smuggler's Trade buff, and you have the ability with the 3/3 that has Death Rattle to also put the buff on your turn 4 beast. So if you start playing beasts at Rat Pack, if your cheapest beast is actually a 3-drop, right? We're gonna go with Rat Pack as your starting point, and Infested Wolf and onwards, suddenly your turn 1 and 2 are dedicated to removal. Say you play Quick Shot, or a trap, let's say like Cat Trick, or just buffing stuff in your hand to start the really late game curve. Because Jade Golem decks, and I imagine the Grimy Goons decks, are going to start getting really, really good starting around like turn 4 or 5, when they start getting bigger Jade Golems, when they start getting buffed up units on the board, and that is where Hunters, with their, single-handedly buffed beasts, can maybe compete. Because if you don't have those abilities, I don't think you can compete with Jade Golem decks. You don't have enough You're not going to start running Hunter's Mark to beat Jade Golem decks. You still don't beat the following Jade Golem. So if you want to play a Hunter deck that revolves around buffs, you're going to start curving a bit later and get one huge beast instead of multiple small buffs that Grinding Goons Paladin forces would go for. That strategy is likely going to be super weak for stuff like Aldo Peacekeeper. It's going to be weak to Hex, it's going to be weak to Devolve, it's going to be weak to Shadow Word Death. So that's the reason why all the death battles that Hunters have might come in to salvage that. Because if you get your guy answered, then at least when it dies, you get a bunch of 1/1s that you can use later on. So it's decent design on Blizzard's part, trying to compensate for the weaknesses of Hunter by giving them a bunch of death battles. So they know that their minions, if they stick around, are going to be probably debuffed by stuff. So they need to die in order to do something great. And I think that the flavor of Hunter is going to be very different from what we've experienced, assuming you play the Smuggler's Crate pack where you buff beast in your hand. Next card we've got is a Mage card, 0 mana Potion. Freezing Potion, you freeze an enemy, so where sometimes you used Ice Lance in order to freeze an enemy, you can then use a 0-cost Freezing Potion to do so. The upside of Freezing Potion is it's 0 mana, and we know that 0 mana spells are very good. Of course, it's going to be amazing for a card like Flame Waker. Luckily for us, that's not going to be around for forever. Flame Waker is just a card that's going to rotate out in a few months, but a card like Freezing Potion makes this pretty good, because it suddenly makes Flame Waker look like the infested, not the infested, but the Frostcaller, implemented Frostcaller, where if you have a 3 mana 2/4 on the board that deals damage, Freezing Potion something is frozen and you deal 2 damage on top of that, you get to pick the target. In a world where you play Tempo Mage, you can just freeze a minion so it doesn't get a trade, and then you can develop on top of that and do even more work. But the issue is, what do you cut for Freezing Potion, right? Like, that's a 0-cost spell. It takes a very precious slot that you have to compensate with card draw. You need to compensate for that with card draw, and I don't think you can justify running that if you're not already running Ice Lance. Because if you run Freezing Potion with Ice Lance, the power level of the combination play is even higher, because Ice Lance on its own is mostly going to be useful in those types of decks in like Aggro Freeze Mage, where you play Frostbolt, Ice Lance, you've got Acolytes of Pain, you've got Arcane Intellect to draw, even Cold Light Oracle in that deck. So if you play that type of list, I think you can already include Ice Lance, but do you have room then for Freezing Potion? Because now we're talking 2 Frostbolt, 2 Forgotten Torch, 2 Ice Lances, 2 Fireballs, 2 Freezing Potion, like 10 slots dedicated to spells that require synergistic play, which again is very difficult. The upside is you can enable Ice Lance with Freezing Potion and go face at times where the opponent doesn't expect it. I think this is mostly going to be some kind of a one-of index to play, because if you need the tempo, then Ice Lance already exists and it doubles up as damage to face, whereas Freezing Potion doesn't have an upside beyond that. The thing that I don't like about Freezing Potion is it really diminishes the value of the Cabal Chemist, where you can find a potion at random. Freezing Potion, we've got a Greater Healing Potion coming up in Priest. We have the Blood Feared Potion in Warlock. We've got the new Destruction Potion that they are going to be coming in with. A lot of those cards are a lot worse than the initial potions we've seen, right? We saw Fellfire Potion, Dragonfire Potion, Volcanic Potion. I was like, you know what? This is good. The potion existed like in a very confined amount, and you can just guarantee you get a board clear. No longer. Now you can get all sorts of really janky stuff. Freezing Potion with the Blood Fury Potion to buff a demon is mostly useless in most classes, and discovering that off of a Cabal Chemist is going to feel good. So the odds are still good that you find something that you can use, but it's still going to suck a little bit when you stumble upon something like a Freezing Potion. Next card we've got is Greater Arcane Missiles. I don't believe in this card. I hope somebody can prove me wrong, but it just seems really situational. So 7 mana, you shoot 3 missiles at random enemies that deal 3 damage each. So this is a literally Greater Arcane Missiles. Now I don't know why it doesn't read something like deal 3 damage to 3 random enemies. Instead it goes shoot 3 missiles. I guess it's trying to just emphasize that you've got 3 bulky things that deal 3 damage. Flavor's cool, but I don't think it's really changing as far as mechanics go. So the way Greater Arcane Missiles is going to be used is either as a bad Flame Strike, where you've got a big board on the, filled up with stuff, and you hope that you snipe exactly what you're looking for. That seems pretty bad to me, because it's strictly worse than Flame Strike as far as doing that. Because even to compensate for the damage output of Flame Strike, you still need, in the end, to have 1 spell damage to even reach the damage that Flame Strike deals. Now, if you want to go face with this, then we're talking, because Pyroblast already deals 10 damage, and this deals 9 for 3 less mana. So for pure face damage, you you can even sprinkle in the Blood Mage downloads and deal 12. The downside is Pyroblast can let you target face. If there are minions on the board, Pyroblast does not give a shit. It'll still go face for 10. Greater Arcane Missiles might not. So in that way, it's a lot less consistent. I don't think this card is very good, even though it might turn out to be creating like this kind of critical mass where there's enough burn to go double Fireball, double Frostbolt, double Forgotten Torch, double Greater Arcane Missiles, double Firelands Portal. Then maybe you can somehow just go all in on 7 drops that aren't Flame Strike and that deal damage to poke stuff. It's pretty crazy, right? When I look at a card like Firelands Portal, I see target removal that can double up as tempo or double up as an extra minion on the board. I look at Arcane Missiles, I'm like, sure, when I get spell damage, it deals more damage per individual spell damage you get. If you get like Evolved Kobold with this, it'll deal 15 total for 7 mana, which is reasonable. But Flame Strike can deal already that kind of damage. Firelands Portal can give you spot removal, can also go phase guaranteed when you need it to. So is Greater Arcane Missiles a card that Mage needed? Is it even a card that it wanted? I don't think so. Maybe it'll turn out to be better than I think, but to me this is just kind of a fun card you include in your deck as like a Reno Mage. You put this as a top end card because you already run Firelands Portal, Flame Strike, and you have nothing else to shove in there. Slap in Arcane Missiles and maybe something good happens. I'm not convinced, but maybe I'll be proven wrong and the card is actually amazing. I wouldn't keep my hopes up for it though. I really wouldn't. Next card is another mage card, Cryomancer. So this one is really cool. 5 and a 5/5, gain +2/+2 if an enemy is frozen when it comes into play. So you need to have something of the enemy frozen on the board. Whether it's the hero or a minion does not matter. If an enemy is frozen, you're good to go. So if you play something like Water Elemental and you just freeze the enemy's face on turn 4, that's good enough. You don't need to freeze a minion. You go face with a Water Elemental, they're frozen, drop Cryomancer, you have a 7/7 for 5 mana, no overload, so again a really bulky mid-game push, and if you've got the Water Elemental that has high health on top of the Cryomancer, you've got yourself a minion-based tempo play in a kind of slower mage deck, right? You can play Charge of Mana Wyrm and include maybe Arcane Anomaly or Cabal Lackey, and then go ahead and curve up to Cold Sorcerer, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Flamewaker. Now you can include maybe Kirin Tor Mage with secrets, play the 6 and 5/5 that cost 0 when you have enough secrets played, and include Water Elemental with Cryomancer, and top off your curve at Faceless Summoner, perhaps.
What? Hello everyone, Kibler here, and I am back with more reviews of the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan cards that have been revealed so far. I'm a little bit late with this one. I was a bit busy with the Red Bull Team Brawl over the weekend, which was a super cool event, by the way. And if you did not get a chance to see it live, I suggest you check out the VODs. But anyway, today I want to talk mostly contender. So let's move on. The conditional is something that you have no real control. Hello everyone, Kibler here. As a priest card. And I'm kind of in the latter camp. I think that Mana Geode is kind of overrated by a lot of people. It's clearly a card that if it gets going, powerful effect when you're able to things. You know, we have to force your opponent to draw cards and put more cards into your deck. So I don't really think this is going to have a home in that style of deck. I don't really think that that style of deck is really going to be particularly powerful regardless, but I don't think that this is something that's going to really find a place there. Next up we have Fight Promoter. We really are looking at itself. There anything speaking of or Hearthstone is the ability to have cards that create tempo advantages by being removal plus a threat in themselves. And Jade Swarmer, not great at that, but Jade sure also be a little bit awkward. There's like Jungle Panther in all cylinders can still be powerful, but this requires that things are going. You are playing a Jade curve where you can just play defense the entire game, then eventually Alexstrasza you, Grom you, kill you. And that was just their plan. And those decks used mostly the same card.
Happen to have water elementals, play water elemental on turn 4, attack your opponent's face, board clear. And then White Eyes was give you some idea of what I think and probably the general worth of these cards, so you have a little bit of guidance when you're making some decks later this week. So to kick it off are a few of the cards released earlier than this, and then so against if everyone is playing really big powerhouse. The Warlock does have a very good single target removal. Do generally struggle to get the idea of a card like this through the has a repetition effect. Almost all the end of turn repetition effects are very powerful cards. We've seen their impact in the past and certainly can swing big time. The main issue I have is I just don't know how strong the control Warlock decks would really be. Control decks in general I think are going to suffer from the existence of Jade Blubber Baron. So this is a really powerful, very good arena card. Opponent's deck. Two mana, okay card though, you know, no dragons in your deck.
Who knows what secrets of power?